Hey guys, this evening we're stepping into a world of steam and stiff fabrics, where the day doesn't begin with the sweet song of birds or the quiet hush of peace, but with the acrid temps of cold smoke and the unyielding grip of a corset cinched tight around your middle. You are about to live a single, suffocating, exquisitely controlled day in the life of a Victorian lady from the moment your eyes flutter open to the instant your private diary is closed, locked, and tucked away beneath the mattress. You wouldn't believe how much time is spent simply maintaining the illusion, pretending you're well, pretending you're modest, pretending you can draw a full breath and, yes, pretending you don't want to scream into a lace-trimmed pillow until your throat goes raw. So, before you settle in, please hit that like button and subscribe if you truly feel moved to tell me in the comments where in the world you are and what the air feels like where you sit. Lower the lights, let the fan hum softly in the background, and now, let yourself sink into tonight's quiet descent. You wake before the world stirs. The fire in your bedroom hearth has long since goldered into ash. Your breath hangs visible in the chill, a ghostly cloud that lingers just long enough to remind you you are alone in this cold. There is no central heating, no warmth to be had beyond the faint, lingering residue of soot clinging to your sheets, the grit in your throat, the dampness seeping into your skin. You cannot pull the covers higher. To do so would be to delay the inevitable. Downstairs, someone, perhaps a girl, younger than you, worn thinner by years of labors, already rebuilding the fire, heating water in a tin kettle, preparing the basin that will be offered to you. You do not wish to trade places with her, but you also do not have the luxury of staying abed. The service bell rings. You signal back. Moments later, she enters quiet, eyes lowered, with a basin of water that is barely warmer than the air, and your undergarments, chemise, long stockings, petticoat, corset. Oh, the corset, it is time. She helps you into it while you stand half asleep in your shift. You grip the bedpost, knuckles white. She pulls the laces tighter, 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 tiller to your ribs fold inward, until your lungs struggle for air, until your heartbeat thrums strangely beneath the whalebone. You do not ask her to stop. There is no such thing as too tight. Your silhouette must be flawless. What was the point of being born female in this house, if not to be shaped into something pleasing to the eye? A cough rises in your throat. You swallow it down. To cough would be to mar the perfection. Next comes the bustle, a padded cushion stuffed with horsehair, which sheds like dandruff and clings to your stockings. Your dress is lifted over your head, sleeves carefully aligned. You try not to notice that she has not looked at you once this morning. That is the rule. To be seen is to be judged. To be unseen is to be safe. If you are of the highest rank, your gown was chosen for you. If you are merely middle class, you still must select something appropriate, for you will receive no visitors today and leave no footprint beyond the threshold. Appearances are not a luxury. They are the only currency you possess. You glance in the mirror. Do not smile. Do not slump. The face staring back does not look like someone ready to conquer the world. It looks like someone ready to be observed, never heard. Now the gloves. Heaven forbid your bare skin touch anything. The sound of footsteps approaches on the stairs. Father, husband, brother, matters not. You must already be seated, composed, as if you have been awake for hours. If your embroidery lies neatly in your lap, as though you've been working quietly since dawn, you earn silent approval. Breakfast is served downstairs, but first, your hair. If you are fortunate, your maid is skilled. If not, she is inventive. Your hair must be curled, pinned, patted, braided, sometimes all at once, in a style that speaks of your age, your station, your marital prospects. If you hope to marry well, it must whisper desire, never desperation. You endure the tug of the brush, the bite of the pins. Your scalp aches from last night's rag curls, twisted tight in a sleep that brought no rest. You flinch. She says nothing. You say nothing. It is only morning, and your body is already a battlefield. Steel around your ribs, metal through your scalp, a smile glued to your lips, where ease once lived. By the time you stand fully dressed, perfectly coiffed, barely able to breathe, you resemble a porcelain doll, immaculate, controlled, terrifyingly fragile. And still, you cannot eat. You descend the stairs as if your bones are made of china, because a misstep even the faintest stumble might invite questions. Are you unwell? Have you been behaving oddly? Is there trouble in your digestion? Or worse, in your character? In Victorian England, a scraped knee could become a moral failing. Downstairs, the dining room smells faintly of overcooked eggs and weak black tea. The men are already seated. Father folds his newspaper with deliberate slowness. The rustle signals permission to speak, but only if your voice is soft enough to be ignored. You are offered a piece of toast and buttered. The butter sits nearby, of course, but you must never be the first to reach for it. You thank them. You cut a sliver. You chew with exaggerated care. Eating is not the point. Grace is if you are married. Your husband may comment on the weather. If you are not, silence hangs like a shroud. Your role is to listen, to smile, to say nothing unless spoken to. A poorly timed remark at breakfast could mean exclusion from dinner. Mornings set the tone for everything. You do not own this house. You maintain its reputation with every gesture, every breath, every silent nod. Now imagine you are not the lady upstairs, but the servant below. You have already worked 3 hours. Your corsetif, you own one ease, stained with sweat, frayed at the edges. You began by lighting fires in every room, a house that never truly warms. You washed linens your own family could never afford to soil. And perhaps the cruelest task, serving food you will never taste while your mistress picks at her toast. You scrub the pot it was cooked in. You learn to be unseen, not silent, for orders are shouted at you all day but invisible. You walk without sound. You finish before you are noticed. You vanish precisely when needed. If you are unluckiest of all, you are a maid of all work. One woman doing the labor of 3, laundry, sweeping, cooking, mending, caring for children, emptying chamber potsel while avoiding the master's gaze, which sometimes lingers too long when no one else is near. A girl named Lottie once wrote to her sister, "I have not sat down in 14 hours." Her reward, a sliver of leftover butter and plain toast, eaten alone in the scullery after dark. And that, they said, was a good day. Meanwhile, upstairs, breakfast is finished. You rise only after the men have left, never before. You murmur thanks to the cook you never spoke to, and return to your room not to rest, but to rearrange. The corset stays on. You will not take a full breath until nightfall. Perhaps not even then. On your dressing table sits a tiny ceramic bowl of lavender water. You dab it lightly on your neck, your wrists. It does not mask the scent of your discomfort, but it lets you pretend for a moment that life is gentler than it is outside. A horse-drawn cart rattles past. Somewhere, a factory siren cuts the era reminder that even if you never step beyond these walls, time does not pause. You must keep pace. You straighten your back. You check the pins holding your hair. You smooth the fabric of your dress. It is time for the true part of your day, the part where you smile, where you agree, where you navigate a world that pretends you have no mind of your own. You do not choose whether to style your hair today. That choice was made long before you were born. A lady's head is a public sculpture on display for the hallway mirror, for drawing room visitors, for the judging eyes of an aunt who knows the look of a girl neglecting herself after breakfast. You return to your dressing room for the most time-consuming performance of the morning. If you are wealthy, you sit upon a velvet stool while your maid begins. She does not ask what style you prefer. She already knows. Last week you requested ringlets. Your cousin remarked that curls are for forward girls. So, today, soft braids, pinned close to the skull, elegant, controlled, suitable for marriage. The brush snags. She pulls. You pretend not to feel it. You would think, after years of this, your scalp would be calloused. But no. Some mornings, every hair feels anchored to your soul. Then come the hot tongs, heated over an open flame, held close to your head by a girl who has had 1 cup of tea and 4 hours of sleep. You hold your breath as the metal hisses. It smells like burnt patience. Singed hair. You say nothing because a well-arranged hairstyle is the nearest thing to a weapon you will carry today. If you are middle class, you do this yourself. Your arm trembles. The iron slips. You burn your forehead. You will spend the day pretending it is a beauty mark. If you are the maid doing the curling, you are not styling hair. You are sculpting a future. A loose curl could offend a suitor's mother. A single stray strand could ruin a proposal. No pressure at all, right? In some homes, hair is washed only once a month. Instead, you brush it every day exactly 100 strokes. It is not vanity. It is ritual, cleanliness, obedience. You lower your head, close your eyes, surrender to the rhythm. Victorian women used pads called rats, made from their own fallen hair, woven into buns and braids. To add volume, you keep a small cloth bag of your shed strands in a drawer. You are not sure whether that is resourceful or slightly monstrous. Either way, it is expected. But here is the greatest challenge. After an hour of heat, pins, rats, combs, oil, and deliberate suffering, your hair must appear effortless, not rigid, not overdone, just naturally perfect, as if you woke this way, as if you were born to look like the woman in the etiquette manual. There is no praise, only the absence of criticism, and that somehow feels like victory. Then comes the hat, because once your hair is done, you must cover it. A feathered cake perched atop your head. Remove it, and your curls collapse. Keep it on, and your scalp burns. Choose your lesser torment. You look in the mirror one final time. It is not you looking back, it is the image of social acceptability. A woman whose hair took an hour to build, who must now pretend she stepped out without effort downstairs. A maid is scrubbing hardened wax from candlesticks with vinegar and salt. Her hair is tied back severely. Lo, never a strand loose. If it frizzes, she is scolded. If she appears vain, she is fired. Meanwhile, you are choosing between two brooches, or rather, pretending to choose. The truth was decided long ago. The plain brooch, modesty. The ornate one, ambition. Neither is wrong, but both can be weaponized. Today, you choose the simple one. Safer. But your head aches. Not metaphorically, it throbs. The pins dig into your scalp. The braids pull at your roots. A bruise lingers near your temple from yesterday's elaborate updo. But to adjust your hair in public, unthinkable. Rude. So if it hurts, you smile and do not touch it. You have perfected the art of smiling with your lips, while keeping your eyebrows utterly still, so as not to disturb the precise waves at your hairline. This is the unspoken curriculum: stillness. Correct posture, lightness of being. Suppression. The less visible your pain, the more obvious your virtue. But not every woman plays this game. Imagine you are a shop assistant. Your wages barely cover your attic room, windowless, shared, cold. You have 10 minutes in the morning to arrange your hair. No mirror, no time. And yet if a single lock falls over your forehead during the day, a customer calls you sloppy. Your manager calls it provocative. Hair for you is danger. In factories, women near turning belts were required to cut their hair short to avoid being scalped. There are stories, terrible ones, whispered, never written, but every girl in a textile mill knows them. They braid tighter, rap higher, pray louder. Back in the drawing room, you check the clock. You have spent nearly 2 hours on your hair. You have scorched your scalp, pulled out strands, scented your skin, curled, recurred, pinned. All to deceive 1 or 2 visitors. Why? Because the way you wear your hair determines how you will be remembered, not just today, but forever. Sketches of your profile are kept in family albums. Tiny portraits capture the exact curve of your fringe. In death, your hair may be cut, curled, woven into mourning, jewelry worn behind glass on a cousin's brooch. Hair is not vanity. Hair is legacy. And yet you are expected to act as if it means nothing. You step out at last, your forehead glistens, your neck is stiff. You do not know yet whether today will bring a walk, social calls, quiet reading, or fainting. But you know this. You will do it all with your skull pounding and your hair refusing to yield. You are ready to be observed. You make your way back to the breakfast room, not to eat, but to linger. To be seen. The table has been cleared. Men are gone. The newspaper lies folded, pristine as if never touched. Crumbs swept away. The tea lukewarm. Now, finally, your role begins. You sit, hands folded. A slice of plain toast sits on your plate untouched. Take a sip of tea, whisper a polite remark to your mother or chaperone. You are not hungry. You are not permitted to be available in the social sense. Being seen at breakfast at the right moment might lead to an invitation. An invitation might lead to security, marriage, stability, or at least fewer questions from Aunt Lydia, that there is an order to everything. Bread first, then egg, then perhaps a kipper, but only if someone else takes it first. Everything is planned, unspoken, steeped in silent dread. You are not here to nourish yourself. You are here to demonstrate that you understand your place. If your family is lower middle class, you may eat, but quickly, modestly, in the kitchen. If you are upper middle class or gentry, you are watched by the furniture, the sideboard looms. Your grandmother's portrait seems to glare. And if you are the servant, you pour the tea, you hold the tray, you stand until your back breaks, and when dismissed, you hurry to the kitchen for the scraps. You must not be seen chewing in the hallway. That could cost you your position. Meals are not about food, they are about structure. The table itself reflects it. A long mahogany plank, the man at the head, the women along the sides. You are not seated, you are placed by birth order, by beauty, by usefulness. A less favored daughter sits closer to the wall. It is never said aloud, but you notice, and God help you if there is a guest. Then it becomes spectacle. Your napkin must be folded before your fingers touch the fork. Your sleeves neither too short nor too frilly. Your voice never louder than necessary. Your laugh one note below audible. Sometimes you wonder if your voice will vanish entirely from disuse. Your father may speak of politics. You nod, you sip, you offer a vague, safe opinion on tariffs, appropriate, not challenging. Your brother speaks of university, his business, his new pocket watch. You say, "How lovely." You do not ask questions. A distant cousin makes a cutting remark about another woman's dress. Do not defend her, but you store the observation away like coin in your social purse. You will need it later. You are not a participant. Our background music, the only time you speak freely. When a guest remarks on something feminine, the blossoms on the mantle, stitching on the linen, these are your domains. And if you are shrewd, truly shrewd, learn to guide entire conversations with the lightest compliment. Mrs. Dowie's gloves are so bold, you murmur, and in an instant, the room is swept into a 5-minute debate on decency. Done. You are still famished, naturally, but you must act as if you are not. Visible hunger is coarse. Wanting more of anything is dangerous to display. The meal ends, and now the real assessment begins, not of the dishes, but of prospects. The gentlemen rise first, as is customary. They depart to banks, offices, clubs. Their footsteps recede down the corridor like an advantage. You will never be granted. You remain. Perhaps your mother asks you to ring for tea. You rise with practiced grace, pull the cord, settle back, all without raising your voice or your aspirations. Now comes the second performance. If you are unwed, of the proper age, every glance is a calculated move. Your younger sister wears that bright yellow dress. It makes her seem eager. You do not speak, but your eyebrows twitch. Mother sees, aunt sees, and just like that, rises. But understand this: if you talk too much, if you laugh too freely, if you show too much spirit, you are branded. irresponsible, melodramatic, unfit for marriage. One laugh, too loud, and suddenly, you are the kind of woman who needs firm guidance. It is a fragile balance, so you retreat into posture, into elegance, into correctness. You ask for more tea, though it is cold, tastes of disappointment. Praise your cousin's scarf, though its color hurts your eyes. You nod when the vicar's sermon is mentioned, though you barely stayed awake in the pew. Meanwhile, in the basement, the cook is yelling, the eggs were too runny, the sausages burnt, the kitchen helper hides her raw hands beneath her apron. Breakfast drags on for the upper class, but downstairs, it is a torment to be forgotten. Up here, in velvet and silk, everything slows. You are expected to linger, to converse lightly, to smile at the clock. One girl in your circle, let us call her Eleanor, once dared to leave early after breakfast, claiming a headache. A week later, a rumor spread. Nervous temperament, they whispered. Poor girl, may not be capable of managing a household. Was never invited to that family's picnic again. This is the reality. It is never written in the books on decorum. You are not merely vying for a husband. You are fighting to hold your place among the other women. The judgment is sharper, the compassion thinner. Eventually, the conversation wanes. The tea grows cold, the silence returns, and you sit still, waiting for tomorrow, because the day has only just begun, and you are still always a woman who must be seen but never heard. A visiting card arrives, a modest cream rectangle, unassuming in size, yet heavy with consequence. Someone plans to stop by, perhaps a neighbor, perhaps the mother of an eligible son. Perhaps, though, the thought sends a shiver through your spine, a woman who has recently returned from the continent and, God forbid, carries her own opinions. Your mother takes the card between her fingers, turns it slowly, as if reading its weight rather than its script. She nods. Your day is no longer your own. You rise not because you are excused, but because you must disappear once more, upstairs, to prepare to be seen again. Your movements are quiet. The stays beneath your dress creak with every step. In the hallway mirror, you catch your reflection, a figure shaped by lace, steel, and expectation, and, for the first time in hours, you wonder if you stepped out the back door and kept walking, would anyone notice? But no, there is toast to pick at, gloves to select, a caller to impress, so you return to your chamber not for rest, but to rearm. Now let us turn the page, step into a different home. You are still a woman in Victorian England, but there is no morning room here. No maid to tighten your corset, no whisper of lavender water on your skin, only the sting of lye, the hiss of boiling water, the red, cracked fingers submerged in it, because this time you are not a lady of the house. You are the washerwoman, and your day began before the sun dared to rise. You wake in a cold, shared space where 6 other women sleep in shifts, their breaths uneven, their bodies curled like wilted leaves. There is no time to brush your hair, no dressing table, no mirror. Your apron goes on before your shoes. Your hands are already raw from yesterday's soap and the pile of soiled linens. It has not diminished overnight. It never does. You go straight to the wash house outside, in a damp alley, if you are not. The air hangs thick with steam and the sour musk of human labor. A neighbor is already bent over a tub, her breath forming small clouds of exhaustion. There is no laughter here, no polished napkins, no polite nibbling of toast, only grunts, splashing, the quiet curse of a woman whose soap has run out for the third time this week. Your task is endless force that keeps the wealthy women immaculate, respectable, scented. Without you, their gowns would yellow, their reputations would fray, their husbands would notice, and no one must allow that to happen. So you scrub with lye soap that strips the skin from your knuckles, with water so hot it feels alive, with brushes that never soften. The scars on your forearms are not accidents. They are badges of your trade, unlike the ladies upstairs, who fear a poorly timed remark at breakfast. Your fear comes in the shape of a stubborn stain, something you cannot name, something that will not lift if it remains. The housekeeper may withhold your wages, or worse accuse you of carelessness. And in a world where employment is scarce and references are whispered like prayers, carelessness is a sentence. You do not work in silence around you, women mutter. Broken melodies. One jokes that her fingers are beginning to resemble cooked sausages. Another murmurs about blood on a nightgown, a secret she is now bound to clean away. It is a burden shared, but not a comfort. You are too tired to bond, too sore to laugh. By mid-morning, your clothes are soaked, your arms tremble. Your stomach has been reminding you, hour after hour, that it has not tasted bread since yesterday's crust. But you keep going. You twist out heavy sheets that drip onto your boots. You pull water from the pumpy churny, a slow, aching march through time. You hang damp linen across strained ropes, your fingers freezing as they grip and pin dot, and perhaps, just perhaps, you catch a glimpse of a fine lady walking past on the street-gloved, scented her parasol, the color of a fresh apricot. Wonder what her hands look like. You wonder if she has ever bled into her bathwater from broken knuckles. You wonder how it feels to rest, but you do not have time for reveries. A child has spilled the soap basin. Your dress is wet again, and there is a second load still to finish before the midday bell. You plunge your hands back into the water dot, set your jaw dot scrub, because being tired is not a valid reason to stop, not for women like you. By noon, the heat in the wash-house is suffocating. Your face is flushed not from shame, but from exertion. The back of your dress is damp. Your stays, if you own any, are loosely tied, not from laziness, not from rebellion. You would remove them entirely if you were not afraid of being seen undressed by your employer or some self-righteous neighbor with strong opinions. You look down at your hands, swollen, wrinkled, nails chipped and dark with grime. Some women rub animal fat into their fingertips at night, hoping to mend the cracks before they bleed. It seldom helps. One girl in your building, Lucy, lost the tip of her finger to a rusted tub edge. She could not work for 3 days. On the 4th, she was turned away. So you do not complain about the cold, or the heat, or the blood beneath your nails. You simply work harder. Midday brings no relief, only a shift. The clothes are twisted, rinsed, snapped clean onto lines or drying racks. But the hardest part comes next, starching. The mixture is made from boiled flour or potatoes. If the larder is lean, It smells faintly of decay and resignation. Stir it with a wooden paddle. Drag collars and cuffs through it. Lay them flat to dry, then dash the iron. Victorian irons are not tools. They are heavy cast iron blocks, heated on a stove or a dying fire. No temperature setting, no mercy. You test the heat by spitting on its surface. Pray it hisses. Pray it does not burn the cloth. Pray it does not burn your arm. Many carry permanent scars on their forearms. A moment's lapse can leave a mark that lasts years. And if you scorch a customer's item, you pay for it with wages you have not yet earned. But the worst burn is not on your skin. It is in the pit of your stomach. When you overhear the lady of the house sigh, "My washerwoman left streaks again," as if her blouse simply appears like a spring blossom. From nowhere, you receive no praise. Only complaints. You press the sleeve of a fine linen shirt, knowing full well the man who owns it would not acknowledge you. If you passed him on the street, he would see right through you like smoke. And yet, here you are, smoothing the fabric that will rest against his back, closer than any embrace. Sometimes, small tokens fall from pockets, a forgotten coin, a silk ribbon, a dried flower from a gentleman's letter to a lover. You never take them, but you observe. You keep them in your mind like secrets. They remind you. The world above you is built on pretense. The rich pretend to be virtuous. The poor pretend to be invisible. You have scrubbed away the evidence of both. By late afternoon, the labor does not end, it transforms. You still must sweep the floors, clean the tubs, carry the heavy, dry linens inside before nightfall. Your back aches, your shoulders hunch. You still have to carry a basket up 2 flights of stairs to your rented attic, and you have not eaten properly. But for now, you sit on a stool near the doorway. Let the cool air touch your face, and in that single minute, before the next chore calls, you remember something unexpected. You are still a woman, not just a washer. Not just a body, not just a pair of hands. You are you. Even if no one acknowledges it, even if it washes away each morning like suds down a drain. Back in the cozy reception rooms of the affluent world, you have had your tea. Your hair is neatly secured. Your stays creak politely with every breath. Now comes the part no one writes verse about, the hour of the wife. Yes, you are technically at home, but you are not inactive. You are the quiet center, around which the entire house revolves. Not because you command openly, no, that would be unacceptable, but because everything must bend to your unspoken design disguised as gentle advice. You begin with the household. Accounts, bound in old green leather. Resting on your writing desk, it determines the fortunes of every servant, every supplier, every misplaced utensil. Your hand aches as you record figures, meat deliveries, chimney cleaners, new candles, broken chamber pots, colaways, coal. You are not supposed to understand numbers, but woe to the butcher if his bill is short by half a shilling. You do not call this work. That would be unfeminine. Call it managing the household, a delicate performance of tact, pressure, and silent calculation. No room for error. Then come the staff. Not all at once. They know better than to crowd you. Instead, They trickle in quiet, hesitant. Mrs. Graham, the cook, wonders if she may prepare fish on Friday. It is 2 pence more expensive. Your chambermaid, Jane, murmurs if she may change her half-day to Thursday. The gardener left a message about the rhubarb. The laundry has not arrived. Someone has torn the corner of the best tablecloth. Respond to them all with the refinement of a duchess and the strategy of a general. Too lenient. The cook will serve veal every meal. Too strict. The maids will whisper behind closed doors, and whispers become revolts. This is your tightrope. You learned it from your mother, who once commanded the linen cupboard. Like a naval officer, you remember how she traced her finger along the rim of a teacup and whispered, "Only women notice what isn't discussed at the table." So now you inspect the food storage, not because you are hungry, but because mice can enter through crevices you did not even know existed. And if your sister-in-law visits and discovers insects in the flour, she will never let you forget it. The staff adjust their behavior. The moment you enter, the kitchen falls silent. The moment you lift the kettle lid, you pretend not to notice. You are not their friend. You are not their adversary. You are the lady of the house, or at least, you are making a great effort to appear so. Sometimes, you wish you could complain about how tiring it is to always be in command, without seeming bossy, about how no one ever praises a smoothly run home, about how people only point out the worn towel or the crooked curtain, but instead, you write a polite note to the fishmonger. Would it be possible to receive slightly fresher haddock, if available? And you adjust the drawing-room curtains by half an inch, because if the light falls too harshly on the sofa, someone might notice the wear in the embroidery. And then a scandal, a conversation, a judgmental, from the angle of one sunbeam, is the job. You are both the sovereign and the captive of this space, and it is barely 11 in the morning. The hour seems endless. You move through the house with quiet elegance, concealing the calculations running beneath your silk blouse. Decorative pillows to fluff, flowers to rearrange, 100 small duties that no one notices until they are done incorrectly. You straighten the cloths on the chairs, not because visitors are expected, but because someone might drop by, and if a caller sees a spot on the fabric, they will never sit again without silently judging you. You check the cabinet. Locks, one is loose. You make a mental note to send for the carpenter, but not today. It is Tuesday, and Tuesday is for poultry, not for hammering. If you have children, now is the time to check on them, not to play with them. That would be unusual. You visit the nursery, ask the governess how the lessons progress, glance at a half-completed Latin exercise. Murder something vague. Very good, dear. While smoothing a loose strand of hair, you ask the nursemaid if the baby's cough has returned. Offer a drop of medicine, though the doctor warned you once against being too affectionate. Tenderness is meant to be managed. Downstairs, the kitchen helper knocks and delivers the laundry you ordered last week. You open the bundle with a mix of anticipation and dread. If a single table napkin is scorched, the housekeeper will hear about it. You examine the lace edge of your best undergarment like a jeweler, checking for flaws. One frayed thread were a national disaster, not because you are uncaring, but because you are the one held responsible. You not the woman who spent hours scrubbing it with boiled starch in a metal tub. If your husband finds a missing button on his evening shirt, he will not reprimand the maid. He will look at you, and so you anticipate the imperfection before it becomes a complaint. Is your burden, that is your actual labor, then correspondence. Your morning is not complete without letters. You withdraw to your small writing desk, tucked beneath a north-facing window. Open the stack. Invitations to decline. COURTEOUSLY. Thank you. Notes to send for things you did not enjoy. Requests from charities. You are expected to support events, though you secretly believe they are run by hypocrites in uncomfortable gloves. You select the finest pen, uncap the inkwell, write sentences filled with phrases like obliged and most honored. Your handwriting is elegant. Your opinions filtered through 7 layers of politeness. You write slowly, deliberately, one eye on the blotting paper. One ear listening for footsteps, because if someone enters unexpectedly, you must not appear too engrossed. That would be self-centered. Women are not supposed to look busy unless it is with needlework or children somewhere in the house. A wooden floorboard creaks. You pause. The mail has arrived. You search for international stamps, crisp envelopes, anything exciting, but mostly it is the same. The same names, the same paper, the same small, confined lives passing through wax seals. You put the letters away, stretch your tired fingers, check the clock. It is almost noon. Soon the lunch tray will appear, and you will be expected to assume your next role. The charming hostess, the delicate woman of refined tastes, the quiet presence at the edge of a conversation between men who believe they control the world. 1 minute the house is silent. You close your eyes. Imagine a world where no one notices the window coverings, where spoons are irrelevant, where being a woman does not mean managing a realm that pretends it is not a realm at all. Then you stand, smooth your skirts, proceed, because you have duties to attend to, and no one will thank you for performing them. The bell rings, a sharp, silvery sound like a polite, divine summons. A visiting card has arrived. You do not rush, that would be improper, but your heart performs a small, unladylike jump. You descend the stairs with the calm composure of someone who has practiced this 100 times, because you have. Calling hours are a ritual, a performance, a snare. Your gloves are already on, not the soft ones. Those are for private company, but the pale kid leather pair with a stitched hem that suggests I am sophisticated, but not desperate. Your skirt moves correctly. Your waistline is cinched to precisely the degree of social acceptance. Your expression mild, pleasant, neutral. You enter the reception room and find her already seated. Mrs. Zorly, naturally, the woman who knows everyone and enjoys reminding them. She holds her teacup like a judgment. You sit, allowing your back to touch the chair, every muscle poised, every finger curved delicately around the handle of your teacup. You smile, not broadly. You nod not too eagerly. Now, the social fencing begins. Mrs. Zorly comments on the terrible, wet weather lately and how it destroys one's good humor. You agree, but you mention how it did wonders for your tulips. She raises an Eyebrow. Score 1 for you. She leans in, her voice drops. A new family has moved into number 7. They have hired a French governess. You gasp just enough to seem curious, not appalled. You sip your tea slowly. Let the gossip linger in the air like perfume. This is the dance. You exchange names like currency. Observations like subtle weapons. You must appear knowledgeable, but not intrusive. Amusable, never common. You are navigating a minefield in a hoop skirt. On the table between you lies her calling card ivory, trimmed with gold. It arrived only moments ago, hand-delivered by a footman in a powdered wig, 2 sizes too big. The card is her pass into your house, but it is also her proof that she has been here, because here is the strange little truth. You leave calling cards even when the host is absent, sometimes, especially when the host is absent, because the objective is not the visit, it is being seen to have visited. It is all about the ledger. Yes, you maintain one. Every woman does. A small leather-bound book, tucked discreetly in your writing desk. Inside, every name, every card, every visit made, received, returned. You must return calls within 2 weeks. Failing to do so labels you inattentive or worsen fashionable. Your social standing is documented, recorded in ink, reviewed like accounts at a bank, and the card itself must follow regulations. Fold at the corner that signifies the call was made in person. Your husband's name written beneath your own implies he also visited. An overly elaborate border. Vulgar. A cream card with a subtle logo. Acceptable. Anything with color. God forbid. Mrs. Zorley rises. A subtle impression remains on the parlor sofa where she sat, but her presence has left a deeper mark upon your nerves. You manage one more courteous smile, lead her toward the doorway, offer thanks, pretending she bestowed warmth and significance upon your life. Instead of veiled criticisms regarding your niece's posture, the moment the door shuts, you let out your breath, though only briefly, because the expected procedure requires you to promptly visit another acquaintance, or risk falling behind in the rigid structure of social obligation to retrieve your personal collection of visiting cards, still arranged perfectly inside their decorated container, and begin the selection process. Who will receive your attention this afternoon? No conversation is necessary. You simply hand over a card, proceed to the next stop. You are not encouraging friendships. You are maintaining your reputation. Small piece of paper at a time. The carriage sways gently as you hold your posture inside. Card holder resting on your lap. Destination confirmed. You are not heading out for afternoon tea. You are not going to shop. You are performing calls. A phrase that sounds pleasant, almost genial, but in reality functions more like a military maneuver, executed in silk and lace. You will stop at 4 or 5 residences, perhaps more, if your gloves remain spotless and your bearing does not falter. You will successfully avoid any actual interaction. Ideally, the perfect call is one where the person you are visiting is not home. You hand your card to the footman. Continue down the street. Your stance is secure. Your hem clean, but sometimes, unfortunately, they are present. The front door opens. A servant bows you inside. And now you find yourself seated once again on an unfamiliar settee, accepting lukewarm tea, offering compliments on their curtains. Your ankles must be crossed just so. Your comments should be lively without ever becoming harsh. Your tone must be kind without crossing into genuine closeness. And be careful, not too often, not too little, not too intelligently, not too foolishly. Just last month, one woman made the mistake of referencing a book she'd finished on actual work of fiction, and not by the authorized Sir Walter Scott. Unimaginable. It is still the subject of conversation. Calling is intended to be short. 15 minutes is ideal, but it depends on the hostess. You must always be the first to rise, signaling the end of the visit. Remaining any longer implies undue enthusiasm. You step back outside. The footman assists you back into the coach. You smooth your skirts. Quickly check your gloves for loose threads. Prepare the next card. Moving on to number 12, asterisk. Some women find this stimulating a chance to display their clothing, their cleverness, their social ease, but you do not. Feel like a visible spirit, nodding, smiling, complimenting hats, pretending the atmosphere is not dense with anxiety, because one careless comment, one accidental error concerning someone's kitchen staff, cousin, or curtains, and you could be removed, not simply from the room, but from society entirely. It has occurred before. Miss Spencer, 2 blocks away, dared to ask a gentleman about governmental affairs during a call. He was only a distant relative. She meant no offense. Yet, within 7 days, her party invitations stopped. Her name vanished from every dinner list. She now raises bees. You make a mental note. Absolutely avoid the topic of insects, occasionally, to make the calls more engaging. Women bring small tokens, a floral arrangement, a new recipe, a piece of lace, a pressed violet. They are not gifts, they are armor, and you carry nothing but your silence, your posture, your perfectly folded gloves, and the quiet, aching knowledge that every card you leave behind is not a gesture of friendship. It is a stone in the foundation of your survival, and you will lay them one by one until the day you are no longer needed. And still, the world turns. The fires are lit, the linens are washed, the tea is poured, the cards are exchanged, and somewhere, in the quiet of a back kitchen, a girl presses her forehead to the cold walls to feel something real. For a moment, just once, before she goes back to work. Trim from their latest purchase. Not out of generosity, but for advantages, small currency to exchange for the quiet gossip that flows beneath every visit, like an unseen current beneath polished floorboards. Mrs. Kent's new maid uses facial rouge. Lady Hartley's husband travels with unusual frequency. Someone heard a faint melody from a violin in the attic of number 9, strange, as they own no such instrument. And that elderly woman in the dreary house never removes her gloves. Perhaps they hide a skin condition, a permanent mark, a scandal. You maintain an expression of indifference, but you are deeply engaged. You listen. You remember every detail, because in this intricate ritual, your quietness is not submission, it is strategy. At last, your circuit of calls is complete. You return home exhausted, wind-chapped, fragile from the relentless performance of poise. You remove your gloves with slow, deliberate care, as if peeling away the very persona you were forced to wear for the past 2 hours, you drop the card holder back into its velvet-lined container. You sigh. Then you turn to your own pile of recently received cards. You record who came, who did not, who folded the corner of their card, who neglected to write your name, and with a single minute movement of your pen, you make a tiny mark beside one name. A single dot. A woman whose visit you will not return. She has no idea yet, but her place in your world has vanished without a trace by the time you return from your rounds. The main parlor is quiet once more. The air still carries the faintest trace of perfume, of tea, of polite conversation, like the ghost of a breath that never fully left. Now begins the time dedicated to domestic virtue. Needlework. Not because anything requires mending, but because a respectable woman must always appear industrious. Heaven forbid anyone suspect you are idle, so you take your place near the window, where sunlight spills across your lap, and lift your embroidery frame. You have already begun a floral design. It is difficult to distinguish the purple flowers from the blue ones. They have both been stitched with the same expression of tired obligation. You pass the thread through the needle. Your fingers are still tender from letter writing. You wish foolishly that something might actually need repair. Just one thing: a torn hem, a loose button, a chore with a beginning and an end, a sense of real accomplishment. But this is not about finishing. It is about being seen doing it. Proof that your hands are delicate, that your hours are structured, that your purpose is ornamental, but well managed. Each stitch is evidence of your virtue. Needlework is not a diversion. It is proof of your moral character. If your cousin arrives unannounced, you will be discovered with the hoop in your hand, your eyes cast downward. If your husband's mother calls, she will find you mending stockings you have already repaired 3 times over. If your husband enters, he will see you creating something delicate, quiet, and suitably feminine. Everything expected of a Victorian wife. Occasionally, other women join you, a small gathering of skirts and tools. Each needle moves through the fabric while their lips exchange private threads of gossip, worry, jealousy, silent dreams. I heard Mrs. Grafton's daughter is planning to marry a junior clergyman, one says, pushing her needle into the cloth with a bit too much force. Clergymen are poor, another comments with disdain. She will be forced to subsist on potatoes and divine goodwill. They offer quiet laughter, but there is an underlying Kuranta sense of relief that this time the scandalous news is not about you. Needlework acts as a shield. You hide behind it. You disappear into the fabric, and it protects you from difficult questions, from loneliness, from the growing realization that none of this thread, none of this lace, none of this labor will ever truly be for your own benefit. But even here, rules apply. You are permitted to embroider pillow shams, small linens, cushion covers, but nothing excessively elaborate. You must not create work that surpasses the quality of the paid servants, and do not attempt anything remotely unique. A flower is acceptable. A songbird is fine. But a bespectacled owl, a lady on a bicycle, that is eccentric, that is risky. You recall the story of a girl who stitched an image of a woman standing alone, holding a heavy sword. They say her own father threw it in the fire. So you carefully stitch a daisy instead, because a daisy is entirely safe, close by. A governess corrects a young boy's Latin conjugations. She too performs her own kind of embroidery, diligently shaping minds that will never speak her name. She is single, almost invisible. The other ladies do not invite her to sit with them, not out of malice, but out of social prudence. She is neither a maid nor a full lady, neither a threat nor a comfort. Her very presence reminds you of the consequence of falling between the rigid lines of class. You lean closer to your work. The needle makes a tiny puncture on your fingertip. A droplet of blood appears on the material. You blot it away quickly. No one noticed. You resume your stitching, pretending the injury did not occur. That is the fundamental skill of a Victorian woman. By now, your fingers move automatically, in, out, pull. The steady rhythm of the needle has lulled your thoughts into a strange, detached silence. That is where the danger lies, when your hands are occupied, but your mind begins to wander. That is when the daydreams start. You picture throwing the hoop aside and walking straight out the front door, or maybe stitching something wildly inappropriate, a mermaid with scales, a pistol, a fox with a wicked grin, something vibrant, something that would make the matrons choke on their tea. But instead, you thread another pale blue fiber, because you are perfectly aware of what this embroidery circle truly is. Not a simple pastime, but a system of scrutiny, a gentle one decorated with flower motifs and edged with fancy laced but scrutiny nonetheless. Every woman present knows how to smile while assessing the condition of your cuffs, how to inquire about your mother's health while checking the length of your hem. They observe if your stitching pace is too slow. They observe if you blink too often. They notice the way your eyes dart toward the window, as if expecting someone or something else. You keep your gaze fixed on the hoop. The truth is, needlework is one of the very few acceptable activities. You are forbidden from owning property. You cannot cast a vote. You cannot enter a gentleman's establishment. You cannot address a town meeting. You cannot walk without escort after dusk. But you are permitted to sew a dozen small roses onto a piece of linen and be hidden, even complimented for it. You can repair your husband's handkerchief and be called dutiful. You can labor for hours in total quiet and be praised for your calm demeanor. That is the profound irony of the situation. In a society obsessed with demanding silence from women, needlework becomes both the symbol of obedience and the single location where women express themselves freely, not always with words, but through meaningful looks, through lingering pauses, through the narrative shared beneath the soft sound of threads passing through fabric. "Did you hear about Miss Halford?" one woman asks, her eyes never leaving her task. "She ran away with a man who works at the theater." "I heard." Another whispers, "Not legally married." A third softly breathes. A slight shake of the head, a sharp intake of air, a shared moment of quiet, a mixture of both shock and excitement. And then back to the routine. Another stitch, another fragment of a story exchanged. Sometimes the gossip turns back to you. You can feel it circulating the room, like a cold draft. You were observed at the local bake shop. You were overheard voicing a rather spirited opinion. Someone noticed you reading a fictional book by yourself in a public setting. You stitch with greater speed. You remember your elderly aunt, who once claimed a woman's true character could be judged by the quality of her buttonholes. You laughed then. You thought it was a joke. You understand completely now, in a different part of town, behind closed windows and darkened panes. Other women are also stitching seamstresses, hunched over their work surfaces, their fingers rough from constant needlework, their backs permanently curved from leaning forward. They have no grand parlors, no soft cushions, but they construct your elaborate gowns. They finish your sleeves. They give physical shape to the very fashion by which you will be judged. You wonder if their needles slip when they are tired, if they ever cry onto the fabric. You wonder if they sew as you do. In complete quiet but dream of loud things, the sun has moved. Position your embroidery frame now casts a perfect circle of shade. Upon your skirt, someone offers to call for a new pot of tea. Another woman states she must leave her daughter, will soon be home from her lessons. The small circle disperses. You carefully roll your work into a neat, compact bundle and place it into your sewing basket. You stand up. Your knees feel stiff. You offer a final smile. The flower is now complete. Tomorrow, you will begin a new one, because the need for needlework is endless, and the social performance never truly stops. The garden walkway guides your steps back toward the secondary entry. You move deliberately nows, though stretching this moment might somehow delay going back inside. Yet the crushed stone ends. The cut flagstone stairs begin. You climb them like an actor leaving the stage. Your hand grazes the railing. You cross the doorway into the dim entryway. Your muscles can finally, faintly loosen. Behind you, the housekeeper closes the door. You permit yourself one short, silent sigh, and then you compose yourself once more, because the reception room awaits, and you are expected to look as if you've simply drifted in on a gentle breeze. But before you rejoin the guests, you pause in the hallland, look at your reflection in the glass. There you are, hat slightly tilted, cheeks a bit too rosy. One tiny strand of hair daring to escape your carefully arranged style. You smooth it back. Not because the small disorder bothers you, but because someone else would notice, and their viewpoint is more important than your own comfort in a world separate from this one. Just a block away, a factory worker struggles through thick dirt, shoulders slumped, skirt wet up to her knees. No parasol, no manicured path, no scrutiny, at least not the kind that follows you through formal meals. She walks with purpose. Nobody cares how dirty her shoes look when she gets there, but you aren't permitted to arrive, only to materialize. If you were already present, faultless, graceful, impeccable, back in the main room. Someone offers you a glass of sweetened drink. You take a sip. You nod. You compliment a gown you find unattractive, and you settle back into your preferred seat, spine straight, ankles neatly crossed, preparing for the next scene. The afternoon is not finished, and neither is the performance. The late-day sun streams across the rug now, stretching out a warm gold and just a touch too warm. The house settles into that specific style of Victorian quiet, so profound it becomes oppressive, a hush composed of timepieces, ticking, remote footfalls, the occasional soft clink of fine china from the service area. You position yourself on the long sofa with a volume, not because you desperately want to read, but because reading when executed with finesse, makes you appear intellectual, polished, deep in thought, and safely unchallenging. The volume in your grasp is poetry. It has to be. Fiction is disapproved of in certain circles, particularly the contemporary kind, filled with strong feeling, self-reliance, and, heaven forbid, ladies with strong views. Verse is safer, especially if it rhymes nicely. You keep the book open just enough so the gilt edges catch the light. You turn the pages slowly with reverence. You read the identical verse 4 times because your eyes keep wandering not to the lines, but to the noise of a door closing overhead, or a footstep that causes you to wonder who might be appearing. Unexpectedly, you force yourself to concentrate. The verse is about a songbird, maybe a stream, something delicately, mournfully beautiful. Your posture is excellent. If someone walks in, they will observe a refined young woman absorbed in lofty contemplation, not a woman utterly weary. You do not shift your position. You do not rest your chin on your hand. Would be too casual. No, you must resemble a painted canvas, all soft edges and tranquil poise. And that is the frustrating element. You are not reading to truly escape. You are reading to act out the escape. And ironically, there are rules even for this activity. 1. Palm supporting the book, the other lightly touching the edge of the sheet. Head slightly inclined, lips faintly parted, are meant to look like a portrait that may someday hang in the gallery of a relative's estate, an image of a woman at leisure. The tragedy is that you are not at leisure. You are working constantly, even during this supposed moment of peace. You are laboring under heavy layers of expectation, because reading is fine certainly, but only if it's not too loud, too quick. Too often, a girl who consumes too many books is questionable. A girl who recites from her books at dinner is marked. A girl who questions the meaning of her reading, dangerous. There is a tale about a young woman who once read Darwin, then asked a minister about it during a tea service. She was sent to stay with a relative in the north indefinitely. You keep that account folded tightly in your mind, like a flower pressed between sheets. A steady warning. Your finger rests on a line discussing profound yearning. You do not dare to feel it too deeply. Instead, you memorize it so that later, when questioned about your reading, you can recite something proper, something vague, something that suggests you were thinking about little songbirds and not about the restrictive situation you inhabit at the far end of the room. Your mother rustles through colorful embroidery threads. She does not interrupt you. That would be inappropriate. But she glances up now and then, checking to see where you are in the volume. Too quick. She will fret about your mental state. She will fret about your lack of spirit. This is the impossible balancing act. To read just enough to look intelligent, but never enough to appear hungry. You shift your attention back to the book. The page has been turned, but you cannot recall what it discussed as the daylight sinks lower, casting angled lines of light across the patterned wall covering. You finally close the volume, not because you have reached the end, but because you have held it for a sufficient time to convey your statement any longer. And someone might presume you actually find enjoyment in reading, which is disturbing. You position the book exactly so on the small side table cover facing up, spine perfectly straight as if it too is simply a part of the decor. Then you stand elegantly, Slowly you stretch, but only in the subtle way a gentlewoman is permitted to stretch, minimally, with a slight turn of the head, a roll of the shoulders, like a majestic bird preening its feathers. Your legs feel cramped, your structured undergarment groans faintly as you shift your weight. You want to yawn widely, but you suppress it completely. Reading, after all, is quite tiring, but it is nothing compared to what occurs when you fail to execute it. There was a girlie Lisa, you think her name was, who never acquired a fondness for reading, or at least never pretended to. She preferred strolls in the garden, sketching animals, writing small poems privately that might have been delightfully. She had not once declared aloud that she considered Wordsworth tedious. She is married now to a man 2 decades older, who owns a large brewing business and dislikes dogs. You wonder if she still writes her verses. Reading is, in certain ways, your protective shell. You think of the governess upstairs, right now, perhaps reading too, but without the comfort, the parlor, the quiet. Reads late at night, in the brief time between correcting a child's penmanship and mending her own clothing. Her books are borrowed, often returned with pages missing. No one praises her for reading. They take it for granted. Her reading is not for display. It is true escape. You envy her slightly for that reason. There is something truly risky about reading for genuine meaning. You experienced it once quietly, when one phrase caught hold of something deep inside you, a section that made you feel truly seen, that felt as if it had been composed by someone gazing through time directly into your very core. But you gently creased the page, closed the volume, tucked it away. Permitting a book to transform you is as dangerous as letting a corset come undone in public. Nobody wants to see a woman exposed, not truly so. Instead, you gather little phrases, fragments, harmless pieces of verse. You can casually offer, at gatherings, a line about the moon, a poetic comparison involving flowers. Nothing that could ever be misinterpreted as deep dissatisfaction. Even your selection of books is chosen for the main sitting room. Your father once gave you a heavy volume of Milton with a note that read, "Strong minds require strong poetry." You read 3 pages and cried, not because of the words themselves, but because of the brief moment he truly saw you. Then he never mentioned it again. Now you primarily read what is expected, what is aesthetically pleasing, what will look appropriate, casually left on the music stand. But occasionally, when you are certain no one is observing you, return to the pages that feel illicit, the ones with furious women, or isolated women, or smart women who ask challenging questions that resonate long after the book is closed. You never speak their names out loud, you just keep them folded into your memory like a private detail, pressed between your gloves, because books may be bound, but you are not as securely put together as they imagine. Not yet. Upstairs, just beyond the second-floor landing, where the atmosphere feels cooler and the wall coverings slightly peel at the edges, lives a woman who dines by herself, sleeps by herself, smiles only when the children achieve their French grammar rules correctly. She is the governess, and today we will inhabit her reality, or rather, her heavy, sensible footwear. You walk the hallway to her small chamber, situated close to the children's room but never quite in it, near enough to be quickly called far enough to remain set apart. That apart characterizes her existence. You enter her small area. It is cramped, highly organized, a place of limited possessions and quiet dignity. There is a small writing surface with 3 books stacked neatly, grammar texts, geography guides, and something half-read privately cherished. There is a large wooden trunk beneath her bed. She has owned it since she was 16 years old. Her plain dress is dark, simple, designed to be inconspicuous, and so is she, as the governess. You occupy an odd transitional space. Not exactly a servant, yet gentlewoman, not paid enough to live comfortably. Not quite accepted enough to marry well. You eat your meals with the children, ever with the family. You instruct on manners you are not allowed to practice. You attend religious services but occupy a seat in the very back. You overhear the dinner conversations, but only through the solid walls. In short, you are essential, and yet completely unseen. You wake early, before the nursemaid, before the initial morning bell. You dress quickly. No corsets, no complex silk layers, just sturdy wool, simple cotton, sheer practicality. You brush your own hair, tie it back simply, and begin the day with arithmetic problems. Your students are charming sometimes. A large ink blot. You suppress the powerful urge to shout. You instruct them to recite their prepared poetry again. They groan softly, but you insist, because you are expected to be a bastion of unending patience, and you must be faultless, or you will be dismissed. Afternoon school periods drag on like thick, wet wool. The children are highly restless, now fidgeting constantly, poking each other with sharp quills, fabricating excuses to leave the small room. You assign handwriting drills simply so you can sit down for 5 blessed minutes of stillness. You glance up at the large clock on the mantelpiece. It is barely past 2. You have not conversed with another adult since the morning meal, and even that was just the butler grunting that the fireplace needed more wood. This is the one thing no one ever mentions about the profession of governess. It is not the demanding labor that breaks you down. It is the intense isolation. You are surrounded by other people all day long, yet you are deeply alone. You are not considered part of the family structure. You are not considered part of the domestic staff. You are an ethereal presence in the long corridor, acknowledged only when necessary, and otherwise completely ignored, like a misplaced piece of decorative furniture at dinner time. You eat entirely alone in your small room on a solitary tray. A small slice of chilled meat, a hard heel of bread, occasionally a simple soup. You are not meant to dine with the wealthy family lest you blur the carefully drawn social boundary. But you are also not allowed to join the servants. They assume you look down on their positions. Perhaps you do slightly, but mostly because you are terrified they might be correct when they discreetly laugh at you and refer to you as a pretend lady. There is no true place for you to belong, not truly, and because you are educated, which you must be to teach effectively, you feel the profound lack of companionship, like a persistent physical ache. No one to engage in discussions of profound ideas with, no one to exchange challenging books with, No one who truly cares that you once successfully translated Virgil or committed to memory half of Shakespeare's great sonnets. Sometimes, when the children are asleep or have been sent off for their music practice, you carefully take out your secret book, the one you keep securely hidden beneath your mending basket. Today, it is a romantic novel. Tomorrow, it might be a weighty volume of essays, something with depth, something that vividly reminds you that you are still a living, breathing person. You read close to the window, your eyes darting upward every few minutes to ensure absolutely no one is observing. A governess who is caught completely absorbed in fiction can be summarily dismissed for inappropriate self-indulgence that actually happened to a woman you once knew well. Her only sin was reading the novel Jane Eyre. The extreme irony almost destroyed her. Once, a house guest at this estate asked you what your specific opinion was of the reform bill. You answered honestly, perhaps too honestly. He smiled politely, but you noticed the sudden chill in the lady's eyes immediately afterward. No one has requested your political opinion since that incident, so now you speak only when it is absolutely necessary. You keep your lesson material polite and completely inoffensive. You compliment the children's extremely mediocre sketches. You praise their oral recitations even when they noticeably stumble. You say, "Yes, miss," and "No, sir," and that will be quite suitable. You have slowly but surely learned to make yourself appear much smaller, much quieter, so that you are never mistakenly perceived as a potential threat, and yet you still permit yourself to dream. Not of extravagant possessions, not of formal balls or prestigious titles, merely of being properly acknowledged, of someone asking how your day truly went, tanned, genuinely, listening to the detailed answer, of eating a meal at a large table where someone politely pours your tea, of being allowed to laugh without restraint, not the careful, quiet, little cough of amusement you use now, but a complete, liberating laugh. You quickly tuck the book away. The children are now returning from their demanding music lesson. You carefully straighten your simple collar. You smile politely, and just moments before, they enthusiastically burst in. You allow yourself one final thought. You are certainly not the heroine of this grand household. You are not even a significant side character. You are merely the margin, notation, the silent presence, the crucial hand that meticulously shapes the next generation, but is absolutely never written into the main storyline. Still, you tightly hold your educational pen. Still, you relentlessly teach. Still, you remain here, because, for some women, simply being near the warm fire, even on its very outermost fringes, vastly preferable to freezing completely in the cold, unforgiving dark. There is a peculiar sense of stillness that settles heavily into the late Victorian afternoon, the kind that makes the persistent ticking clock sound much louder, the slanting sunlight feel much thinner, and your own tightly laced skin feel just a bit too restrictive. It is precisely the hour where women of good standing are supposed to be completely at ease. But you are quietly suffering. You sit uncomfortably in a chair that is slightly too straight-backed, wearing clothes slightly too restrictive, in a life slightly too strictly managed, and there is simply no polite or graceful way to articulate this. But you feel profoundly unwell, not truly sick, not entirely well either. Something suspended in between, a little dizzy, a little physically drained, a little highly strung. That familiar word again, nerves, the convenient, all-purpose term for every quiet despair a woman must politely suppress. You glance down at your hands, completely immobile. You fold them tightly in your lap and wonder silently if they will suddenly betray you, which, unexpectedly, tremble uncontrollably, reveal your true state. It is simply the corset. You firmly convince yourself. You have not taken a full, deep breath in over 5 hours. Or perhaps it is the oppressive heat, or the way your stays have pressed painfully into the base of your spinal column and made your head feel strangely light and disconnected. And yet you will not loosen anything even slightly, because to do so would be to admit undeniable weakness. And weakness attracts unwanted attention, and attention in this highly critical world is a genuine danger. So you sit up even straighter and pretend not to notice the constant buzzing behind your weary eyes. In the farthest corner of the room, Aunt Margaret sighs audibly. "Oh, poor dear," she gently murmurs. "You look quite noticeably unwell. Perhaps a little period of rest." You give a small nod. She rings the small bell for tea and thoughtfully recommends a bitter tonic, something dark brown with a smell reminiscent of furniture polish. You take a slow sip of it. It accomplishes nothing at all except to confirm to everyone else present in the room that you are behaving exactly as expected. After all, proper Victorian women are absolutely not supposed to feel genuine anger, uncontrollable restlessness, or crushing despair. But a sudden fainting episode that is perfectly acceptable, that is practically fashionable, it is even implicitly expected. You have heard tales of women who keep a dedicated fainting couch near every single window, of women who retreat to their private rooms with the nerves and remain there until dinner time, returning even paler and quieter, and somehow even more highly sought after for marriage. You quietly wonder if you are slowly becoming one of them, or worse, becoming widely known as one of them. It begins with one sudden headache, one fleeting moment of dizzy lightheadedness at a simple musical performance. Then someone mentions it to the local priest's wife. Then someone else quickly passes it on. Before you fully grasp what is happening, people start politely offering to carry all your small packages, pull out your chair for you, inviting your younger sister on long walks instead of you, and then you are officially the delicate one, which would not be entirely terrible, except fragility in a woman is precisely like a lovely rose left outside overnight. At first, it is undeniably charming. Then it is rapidly wilted. Then it is mercilessly discarded. So you strive hard not to faint, not to tremble visibly, to politely smile through the profound weight on your chest, and pretend it is merely your confining bodice fitting poorly. You tried desperately to recall who you were before the heavy corset began, before the highly charged word nervous crept into your mother's correspondence, before the doctor with the overly slick hair and perpetually pale hands started stopping by routinely after church, simply to check on you. You know precisely what he will say if this continues to worsen. You have heard it secretly whispered at countless garden parties. Hysteria. That terrible word, lol, harsh consonants, and even harsher, devastating consequences. Because hysteria is much more than a simple medical diagnosis. It is a definite sentence to complete isolation, to widespread ridicule, to brutal ice baths and intense mustard plasters, to a tiny, forgotten room at the farthest end of the long hall where women are sent to supposedly get better, and never quite return to their former selves. And so you do exactly what all women like you are rigorously taught to do. You perfectly mask it. You lace up even tighter, smile even wider, speak even softer, and when you are certain no one is observing, you quietly dig your sharp nails into your soft palm, not to deliberately cause pain, merely to feel something undeniably solid and real. It is mid-afternoon. The air is thick and still. You are physically motionless, but your mind is violently thrashing, and no one, not even yourself, can accurately name the suffocating thing you are. You are drowning in dot by late afternoon. The initial dizziness morphs into something entirely different, unnoticeable, frantic fluttering in your chest cavity as if a small, terrified bird is frantically beating against your fragile ribs. You slowly rise from the large chair, truly hoping that simple movement will alleviate the sensation, but the entire room seems to suddenly tilt ever so slightly. The detailed wallpaper feels uncomfortably close, the air intolerably heavy. Someone notices, inevitably. They always do. Mrs. Pembroke, who resides 3 blocks away and is currently visiting today, gasps with a kind of delighted horror. "Oh, my dear girl, you look terribly pale. Sit down, quickly now." And just like that sudden moment, you have become the unexpected main event of the entire afternoon. Quick thinking maid rushes out to retrieve smelling salts. Aunt Margaret begins to fan you vigorously with a rolled-up copy of the Lady's Journal. A worried cousin hovers nearby, suggesting cold water. It is not that they genuinely want you to be unwell, but your sudden faintness provides them with something active to do, something engaging to talk about later, something that makes them feel temporarily useful and important. You feebly try to insist that you are absolutely fine, that it is merely the oppressive weather, or perhaps the sudden excitement of the long day, but they have already made up their minds. You have suffered an episode, a nervous turn, a moment, that impactful word again, moment, in this highly stylized world. A single moment can either utterly ruin your, dramatically rescue you. A moment renders you intriguing, vulnerable, noticeably softened, exactly the kind of woman men feel instantly compelled to protect, and other women feel utterly compelled to endlessly discuss. You breathe in short, shallow gasps as the pungent-smelling salts aggressively burn your delicate nose. The sharp ammonia stings intensely strong, enough to make your eyes water involuntarily. You cough once, then a second time. Everyone immediately relaxes their posture. "There now," says Mrs. Pembroke, with the clear tone of someone who has just successfully won a hand of cards. "All better, all better." 2 completely hollow words that mean absolutely nothing at all. They continue talking softly for a few more minutes, speaking quietly now, if you might completely shatter if the surrounding conversation becomes too loud or sharp. You nod slightly, smile faintly, and accept the gracious offer of a dry biscuit. You are now officially considered delicate. Is a reputation that clings to you like damp, fragile lace. By tomorrow morning, the story will have traveled far and wide. "Did you hear the terrible news? Poor thing nearly fainted yet again." Such profound nerves, such extreme sensitivity. Your name will gently hover in elegant parlors, paired constantly with flattering adjectives: sweet, frail, melancholic. You sip your lukewarm tea in total silence, already feeling yourself shrinking internally. But there is a second underlying truth, humming beneath this delicate charade, a quieter, much crueler one. Victorian era doctors have essentially turned women's very real pain into a kind of twisted poetry. They label your sheer exhaustion a feminine temperament, your crippling migraine, overexcitement of the imagination, your sudden heart palpitations, an excess of unmanageable emotion. They have even gone so far as to invent strange machines, small, buzzing, worry devices intended to relieve hysteria in their female patients. No one dares to call that outright madness, of course. That is simply treatment. You sit absolutely still, allowing the tea to become completely cold in your small gloved hand. Cannot quite decide what is truly worse, that you have become reduced to a simple symptom, or that you are expected to make that suffering look somehow beautiful and appealing from this day forward. You will be routinely told to rest, not to walk too quickly, not to read too voraciously, to allow your challenging thoughts to run completely wild, as if your active mind were merely a wild animal that must be constantly contained in a cage. But you know the undeniable truth: your deeply personal thoughts are absolutely all you have left remaining, so you hold on to them tightly. Quietly, meticulously, you write them all down in the tiny, leather-bound notebook carefully hidden inside your writing desk, the one securely wrapped in ribbon and tied very tight. You will find secret defiance there, your invisible, powerful pulse, the next time someone politely says, "Poor dear, your nerves," you will simply nod your head. You will even offer them a polite thank you. But deep inside your mind, you will vividly think of that small, trapped bird in your chest, and you will smile slightly because it is still alive and struggling, and so are you. Evening does not begin with the setting sun, but rather with billowing steam. You have successfully navigated through the long, agonizing hours of quiet internal panic and soft, insidious judgments. Now it is time for the final grand illusion, restful repose. If you are fortunate, or perhaps unfortunate enough to be a member of the wealthiest social set, you are formally summoned for your meticulous evening routine. Your attentive maid enters the room, her arms full of warm, soft towels and delicate glass bottles filled with mysterious aromatic liquids. The air quickly fills with the smell of lavender water, sharp ammonia, and just the faintest underlying trace of raw desperation. You sit rigidly in front of the ornate dressing mirror. She begins methodically with your elaborate hair, meticulously brushing out the tight curls, carefully retwisting the intricate plaits, gently teasing the countless pins free from your extremely tender scalp. You wince quietly only one single time. She expertly pretends not to have noticed anything at all. Then comes the essential face cleansing. Not simple soap, not anything remotely uncomplicated. Instead, thick, cold cream composed of whale oil, a toner with a high alcohol content and astringent qualities, rose scent, if fortune allows. But in a few homes, they rely on something stronger, like mercury. That's right, mercury, just the smallest measure, dabs in a cream, rubbed in to whiten the complexion. Fair implies innocence. Fair means unblemished. suggests eligibility for marriage. Pay no mind to the fact it erodes the skin surface. Pay no mind to the painful sensation. Your cheeks must not glow. They need to softly shine. Therefore, you apply it not from vanity, but because your entire worth may hinge on how transparent the skin over your cheekbone looks by the light of a lamp at the evening meal. Your lashes are darkened not with cosmetic pigment which hasn't been created yet, but with lampblack, a fine ash mixed with a little moisture from your mouth, applied with a fingertip gently. Your lips are compressed, not colored. That would invite disapproval, but a quick, hidden pinch before entering the parlor gives just enough hue to imply vitality, not deprivation. Your dress for the hours ahead is already prepared on the bed, structured silk, cut low at the neck, but respectable, the sort of garment that hints at fortune without broadcasting desire. You slide into it with established ease. The attendant secures the hooks. Climbing your back, you stretch your arms just enough to sense the tight binding of cloth along your spine. Your self-assurance altered by the time you descend the staircase for supper. You are an entirely different being, the faint girl with a racing pulse and dizzy spells is gone. In her place stands an apparition, composed, perfumed, subtly glistening with light oil and fine powder. You glide into the sitting room as though you have never experienced a moment of strain. That is the expectation, because this is the hour when women are meant to be decoration. You will not pour the beverage. You will not serve the dishes. You will not begin the discussion. You will, however, contribute ambience. You will smile with just the proper mix of mystery and restraint. Will laugh politely when one of the older gentlemen incorrectly quotes a poet. You will tilt your head when someone mentions the sovereign's recent health, and you will withstand the silent looks, the ones that examine your collarbone like an unseen restraint, the ones that assess your endowment behind gentle eyes. You are not present to consume. You are here to be observed. The dining area brightens with gaslight. The air is warm with rich food, aromas, and polished tableware, but your appetite is nowhere to be found. You sit in your assigned spot, hands resting lightly near your plate, posture erectus. You were taught since childhood. A gentleman to your right asks your opinion of the recent weather. You reply, "It has been mild, but the plants require rain." He nods. Someone mentions a new production in the city. You have knowledge of it from the periodicals. You know the lead actress. You know the scandal, but you offer no comment unless prompted. A woman who expresses her views on theatrical matters may soon be suspected of possessing opinions on governmental affairs, and that, naturally, would be unsuitable. So instead, you offer a slight grin and inquire about his animals. He speaks for 10 minutes. You slice your meal into small, careful pieces and pretend to masticate them. You do not empty the plate. You never do, because dining, like everything else, is a display taught to little. And you appear delicate, too much, and you seem uncouth. And if you accidentally mark your bodice with pan drippings, well, you may as well propose to yourself, because no one else will. The lights dim slightly. You feel a pressure building behind your eyes, but you maintain your smile. One of the elderly ladies farther down the table has used too much rice. flower. It collects in the wrinkles beside her mouth, and someone murmurs about it behind a stemmed glass. A servant briefly stumbles while presenting the seafood. No one acknowledges her. You all pretend it did not occur because the dinner is an act and the illusion must be maintained. Especially the illusion that the women at this table are not exerting effort. You are calculating your every motion, your every utterance. You laugh where appropriate, sip sparingly. Nod encouragingly, and answer queries with a kind of refined neutrality. Internally, you are elsewhere entirely. You recall hearing once that some women ingest small amounts of the chemical not only on the skin, but swallowed to maintain their ghostly appearance, their eyes shining, their girth reduced. They perish slowly. Naturally, but elegantly. That appears to be the ultimate aim, following the sweet Disha, chilled dessert. You scarcely taste. You stand when the hostess gives the signal. The ladies withdraw to the parlor. The gentlemen remain for cigars, spirits, and important conversation. You have never been invited to that segment in the sitting room. You settle once more into your chair. Someone begins to play the large piano. You know the melody intimately. You hum it softly beneath your breath, gently enough to appear charming, but not so confidently as to overshadow the musician. No one applauds. They never do. One woman produces needlework, another starts a narrative regarding her relatives' planned nuptials. You smile and offer the drink. You do not yawn, do not slump. You do not mention the stiffness in your neck or the cramping in your foot from shoes that are slightly undersized. You are composed, are engaging. You are completely drained. But when the men re-enter, smelling of smoke and pronouncements, you smile once more. You look upward. You present a quiet, shining version of yourself, the beautiful exterior, and they nod as if they understand you. They do not. They never do. The subsequent morning arrives with the mild soreness of yesterday's politeness still settled between your temples. The smell of burning coal and starch hangs in the corridor. You move slowly, as if waiting through heavy fabric. It is another day, another set of requirements, but this one involves a different outfit. You are philanthropic. It is scheduled into your week like a fixed ritual. Thursday mornings, visits of charity. Friday afternoons, a needlework group for disadvantaged children. Saturday perhaps for organizations supporting impoverished gentlewomen. The names change. The hardship persists. You dress modestly but suitably because presentation is part of the virtue. No silk today too worldly, no jewels too proud. Select a simple walking gown with a plain cap and hand coverings that have been cleaned, not new. Your attendant approves. You look appropriately benevolent. After all, is also an enactment. You step into the carriage, holding a bundle of cookies and used garments. You're en route to perform good deeds. The road outside smells of wet paving stones and horse waste. You try not to inhale too deeply as the carriage moves toward the less affluent neighborhood. The air there is distinct, heavier, laced with the sour tang of poverty and the quiet desperation of those who have no choice but to endure. You arrive at the door. You are greeted by a woman whose Hands are cracked with cold and labor. She thanks you with eyes that have not known kindness in years. Offer the bundle. You smile. You say nothing. You do not ask her name. You do not linger. You return to your carriage, and somewhere, in the quiet of a back kitchen, a girl presses her forehead to the cold wall, just to feel something real. For a moment, just once, before she goes back to work, heavier, full of smoke from thousands of chimneys and the odor of bread that is never quite fully cooked. Shoeless children dart between carriages. Women with scarves pulled tight around their heads carry buckets of water up endless staircases, their shoulders bent beneath the weight of lives that offer no reprieve. You glance through the carriage window, careful not to stare. Your soul aches, but you remind yourself, this visit matters. You are bringing hope. You arrive at a mission house operated by the Female Benevolent Society. Inside, the air smells of vinegar, soap, and something deeper, the faint metallic temps of desperation. Other women from your social sphere are already present, standing in small clusters like flowers forced to bloom in barren soil. Mrs. Harrow offers you a writing board. If you could assist with the distribution, she suggests, her tone implying you might otherwise be unoccupied. You move to the long table, where stacks of clothing await selection. You lift a thin, worn skirt patch over patch and fold it carefully. A young mother approaches. Her expression is strained, yet dignified. She asks quietly if she might be permitted one garment for her daughter. You nod, but Mrs. Harrow shakes her head. We must first assess her suitability. The woman blushes, murmurs an apology, and retreats. A knot tightens in your abdomen. You are supposed to feel righteous. Instead, you feel insignificant, and you remain silent. This is how aid functions, here not as compassion, but as control. The needy must smile, bow slightly, express gratitude. Their appreciation must be visible, orderly, suitable for a portrait, sketchworthy, because photographs are for the wealthy, and your purpose is to observe it, prove that decency exists, that the arrangement works, that your moral compass is undamaged. You hand a baked loaf to a small girl with dirt on her face. She accepts it wide-eyed and says nothing. You manage the kind of smile that strains your facial muscles. May God bless you, you murmur softly, but as she runs back to her mother, you catch the look the woman gives you. It is not thankfulness, it is sympathy. You try to dismiss the thought, because if you allow yourself to truly feel the disparity, you might find yourself unable to continue smiling at all. So you straighten the stack of garments, retie the strings around the bundles, and convince yourself you have fulfilled your obligation. You have contributed, you have cared, you have helped, haven't you? The day stretches out endlessly in the mission house, the sort of tiring duration that feels like punishment. You hand out baked goods, arrange clothing, offer hushed expressions of concern to women whose names you forget. Moment they dip their heads before you, the other ladies chat softly about music, events, and cooking. Instructions, the word privation never leaves anyone's mouth. When the containers are finally empty, the atmosphere feels less constrained, not because the task is completed, but because the exhibition is over. One by one, the women depart, clutching parcels and assurances. A few pause as if to thank you. Most hurry away. They have lives to resume. You have none to return to. Not really. Mrs. Harrow proposes a warm beverage before your departure. You agree? The tea is lukewarm, the biscuit stale. Still, she glows with contentment. It is such a comfort, she sighs, to realize we have accomplished good work. You nod, glancing at your own reflection in the moisture-covered pane. You look virtuous, valuable, redeemed. But you cannot shake the sense that something is profoundly wrong with this style of kindness, this quiet, refined craving for the suffering of others. The reality is, charity has become a diversion, a substitute for meaning. Just as sewing fills empty hours, benevolence fills empty purpose. The disadvantaged are not people, they are characters in your story of righteousness. They appear, they suffer, they offer thanks, they disappear. On the carriage journey back, the city becomes a blur of smokestacks, dirt-smeared facades, thin faces pressed against windows. You imagine for a brief, reckless moments, stepping out into that other existence, walking until your footwear gives way. Living without mirrors or social graces, just breathing without being watched. But then the thought fades suppressed. Beneath layers of expensive material and responsibility. You arrive home just before the sun sets. The house smells faintly of wax, polish, and flowers. The attendant takes your heavy outer garment. You should feel successful. Instead, you feel as though you have just returned from a theatrical production in which everyone performed their role to flawlessly. Upstairs, in your small writing area, you open your personal notebook. You intend to quickly record your observations, something about the nobility of service. Perhaps a citation about faith-based empathy. But your writing hand pauses. The words that appear are not devotional. They are questions. What if benevolence were silent and unobserved? What if assistance required no spectators? What if charity were not a divide between social classes? You shut the notebook quickly. Unsafe ideas. Better to keep them private. Better to be seen as kind than to risk being seen as peculiar. Downstairs, the dinner bell rings. Food is prepared. You smooth your clothing, check your appearance, and descend the steps. With perfect grace, you will smile when asked about your day. You will say, "The poor are grateful." You will say, "It felt good to contribute because that is the expectation. That is what is safe." And later, when the house becomes quiet and everyone is sleeping, you will sit by the window and think of the woman's gaze, the one who showed you pity, the one who saw through the fine lace, the one who understood that good deeds performed for display are not goodness at all, but self-absorption disguised as virtue. You will not forget her. Not tonight. Not ever. Night has descended over the city, and the streetlights flicker dimly against the moist window glass. You have changed into your formal evening attire, the one that constricts a little more around your ribs. Though you barely notice now, you have been trained not to. The evening meal was exactly the same as always. Simple food, simple discussion, simple pleasantries. But tonight, your husband, say. You wonder how many other women are concealing journals like yours scattered throughout the city, filled with words too dangerous to utter aloud. You imagine them hidden inside sewing baskets, tucked behind prayer books, slipped between recipe cards, ideas disguised as obligation, hope disguised as custom. Perhaps you are not alone. Perhaps none of you are. You write faster now. Ink smudging your fingers. You do not care if the world will not let us speak. We will whisper if it prohibits our presence. We will linger in the margins, and one day they will discover our words and realize we were here all along. You close the journal and press your palm against the cover, feeling the faint warmth of your own pulse through it. You almost laugh at the boldness of what you have done. Nothing more than a few pages of ink, yet it feels like the first true thing you have ever created. Downstairs, the bell rings for luncheon, and look around the room to ensure nothing seems out of place to anyone else. Everything appears the same: a neat space, a polished desk, a respectable wife. But you know the truth now. You have constructed something they cannot see, an unseen life within the visible one. As you walk down the stairs, the maid greets you with a quiet nod. You catch her eye for a moment, longer than usual. She looks startled, then smiles back, a genuine smile, the kind you have not shared with anyone in months. For a brief second, you feel it, that connection you once imagined between the worlds above and below the stairs. To women, different limitations. One understanding. At the table, your husband glances up from the newspaper. You are cheerful today, he says, slightly surprised. I suppose I am, you reply, taking your seat. He does not ask why. He never would, but for once, you are glad. You want this secret untouched, a small glowing ember, concealed under layers of silk and manners. It is not freedom yet, but it is the beginning of it. That night, when the house finally settles into its usual quiet, you sit by the faint glow of a single candle, journal in your lap, heartbeat steady but vibrant. You are not hiding now. You are composing. You've begun to imagine what these words could become if they ever left this room. Maybe not a book. Maybe not even a letter. Perhaps just a whisper that reaches another woman's ear, something that says, you are not crazy. You are not alone. It is the world that is too confined. You trace the edge of the page, fingertips faintly smudged with ink. There is power in this mark, you think, a sign of your own making, unapproved and uncorrected. Outside, a carriage rattles past, wheels slick against the cobblestones. Somewhere in the distance, church bells chime the hour. You think of all the women hearing the same bells, marking the same hours, wondering when, if ever, their lives will start belonging to them. The thought anchors you. You turn the page and begin again. They tell us that our role is to safeguard the peace of men, but peace built on silence is not peace. It is a prison. They tell us to be thankful, refined, good. But goodness without liberty is obedience wearing a bow. The words feel hazardous, like stolen flame. You do not stop. You continue until the candle burns low and your fingers ache. The room smells faintly of wax and defiance. Then you hear it, footsteps in the hallway. Your husband's heavy and measured. You snap the journal shut and slide it beneath a folded shawl just as the door opens. He appears ready in his dressing gown, brows raised. Still awake, you smile faintly. Couldn't sleep, he chuckles, the sound soft but condescending. Too much thinking will ruin your rest. You know that, my dear. I know, you reply, your voice smooth as the surface of your tea. He kisses the top of your head lightly. absently and leaves again. The door closes. The air shifts. You wait a full minute before exhaling. You retrieve the journal, heart still pounding, and tuck it deeper into its hiding spot. You will keep writing tomorrow, and the day after. You do not know what it will accomplish or, if anyone, will ever read it. But it does not matter. You have begun. In the mirror across the room, you catch your reflection, the faint gleam of candlelight flickering over your face. You look neither delicate nor fearful. Now, you look awake. It is startling, that realization, to see yourself as something more than ornament, more than a role. You whisper softly into the quiet. They will never know me. It is not sadness this time. It is challenge, because now you do. Tomorrow, you will still smile at the breakfast table. You will still pour tea, still nod, still listen. But every gesture will carry a hidden weight, a private pasta reminder that while they believe you obedient, you are busy constructing something no one can erase. The world outside may never read your words, but one day someone will find them a trunk or a drawer or beneath a loose floorboard and realize that even within the strictest confines, women were thinking, dreaming, writing, and maybe, when that day comes, they will understand history was not made only by those who spoke loudly. It was kept alive by those who whispered. You blow out the candle. The smoke curls, upward faint and aromatic in the darkness. The quiet feels complete, not empty. You close your eyes. You are no longer just surviving. You are becoming. The days pass in their normal rhythm, visits, correspondence, polite chatter, but something inside you vibrates differently now. The old silence no longer feels like security. It feels like slumber, and you have begun, very quietly, to awaken. It starts with small actions. You begin to speak a little more clearly at luncheons, when someone observes that women are too emotional for politics. You let your smile falter just enough to cause discomfort. You stop apologizing. When you take the last scone, you stop lowering your gaze. When men speak over you, they notice, not all at once, but slowly, like birds startled from a field. Mrs. Winthrop comments that you seem energetic lately, her voice sharp beneath the sweetness. Another lady calls you independent, which sounds like both a compliment and a warning. You pretend not to hear either, but inside, you feel something fierce blossom, a spark of satisfaction. You have started writing every day now, not only at night, but sometimes in the mornings. Before the house stirs, you write in code little fragments, disguised as print prayers or grocery lists, phrases that mean nothing to anyone else. 3 apples for the market really means 3 ideas that frighten me but must be recorded. Your words are spreading across the pages faster than you can contain them. Sometimes they frighten you. Sometimes they steady you. Always, they remind you that you exist. One afternoon, Mrs. Grafton calls unexpectedly. The maid announces her with a note of surprise. You haven't seen her since the advancement of the female mind meeting, where she nearly incited a rebellion with one sentence. She enters your drawing room with calm confidence, rain still beating on her cloak. You offer tea boot. She gently refuses. I did not come for tea, she says softly. Her eyes briefly check the writing desk, then return to you. Do you still think about that day? You nod. She smiles, faintly. So do I thought. I was the only one. The two of you speak carefully, at first circling around the forbidden topic, but soon the air fills with sincerity. You discuss reading, solitude, the way women's lives are curated. Like museum displays, you talk about the longing for something you cannot quite articulate. It feels risky, this conversation, like walking along the edge of a precipice, but also thrilling. Mrs. Grafton leans closer, her voice dropping. I have been gathering with a few women quietly to discuss education reform, writing workshops. Nothing radical, of course. Her eyes sparkle with irony. You both know that in this world, a woman reading the wrong book is radical enough. You hesitate. The words yes and no fight in your throat. Finally, you ask, do you think it is safe? She smiles, just barely. No, but that is not the same as impossible. The sentence hangs between you like a lamp. When she leaves an hour later, your pulse is still quick. You stand by the door long after her carriage has departed, fingers pressed to the wood, as if trying to hold on to the moment. Safe and impossible. You whisper the words to yourself again. They sound like a decision. That evening, you take out your journal and write a new line, different from all the others. Not observation, not reflection, but commitment. I will not spend my life waiting to be given permission. You underline it once, then close the book. You have no idea what you will do next, but for the first time, that uncertainty feels like liberation, not fear. The next morning arrives, soft and gray. A low fog curls along the street, muffling sound and softening the edges of everything. You sit by the window in your robe, tea cooling beside you. Journal open, the ink gleams wetly in the early light. You read over what you wrote last night. I will not spend my life waiting to be given permission. The words look both fragile and certain, like a bridge made of glass. But as you trace them with your fingertip, you feel something steady form beneath the fear. Resolve. You do not need to make speeches or force open doors to change things. You can start small. The way every real revolution begins in murmurs. When your husband appears in the doorway, you close the journal calmly. He asks if you are coming to breakfast. You nod. He does not notice the ink stain on your hand at the table. He talks about finance and rail systems. You listen politely, but your mind is elsewhere. When he asks if you will be home this afternoon, you answer honestly, no. He looks up, surprised. No. I am visiting Mrs. Grafton, you say, your tone mild but firm. She is starting a reading circle. He frowns slightly, as if the idea does not fit into his world's order. For what purpose? To read, you say, simply meeting his eyes, and to think. The silence that